Right now, I'd like to go through a little bit of a thought experiment. I want you to imagine this with me. Imagine your basic day. You're about to go into the office, and you wake up. It's still dark outside because it's so early, right? And you're getting into the car, and you're driving to work. Well, something about this day is off because you only had 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And as humans, we all over the planet, humans know what it's like to feel sleep deprivation, right? That downward shift in mood. And on this day, somebody cuts you off and you barely get out of the way, right? But you make it, but you're actually driving at what in North America we would say is the legal limit to drive. It's as though you are impaired with alcohol because you're sleep deprived. So visual motor performance is affected. Then you get into the office and your colleague asks you, hey, what was it that was in that previous meeting that we had? We had to do something today. And you have a bout of aphasia. You can't remember what that was. And that's because memory is distinctly tied to your sleep quality. And then you have to write a report for the end of the day. But as you're typing away, you're working on your report, you notice you're a little bit distracted. Your attention isn't that focused, right? Maybe you're on Facebook, or I guess I should say WeChat here, right? And you're a little bit more distracted. You're on social media because you can't focus on what you want to do. And then someone comes in and there's an emergency. You have to choose between option A or option B. And on a day where you would have had full sleep, it would have been pretty easy for you to make this decision. But today it's hard because you can't process and compute what the downstream consequences are for that. And then at the end of the day, you have a meeting. And in that meeting, you're giving a presentation. Somebody is ignoring you and they're looking at their cell phone, and you snap at them. You go, hey, put that cell phone down, right? And that's because you can't control your emotions. One of the functions of sleep is to actually control your emotions and inhibit aggressive outbursts. On top of all that, sleep is critical for a strong mind. Studies have shown that poor sleep is linked to depression, anxiety, and psychosis. Sleep is critical for healthy aging. When you get good sleep in your middle-aged adult years, it actually serves as a preventative measure for things like Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline later on in your life. And this is actually going to be important because after I talk to you a little bit about the evolution of human sleep, I'm also going to describe to you how that makes us vulnerable to Alzheimer's disease. And this is going to be an important message for today. And then it actually reduces physical signs of aging. There's an expression in the West. Sometimes if you haven't had a lot of sleep or say you have bags under your eyes, your mom will say, hey, you should go get some beauty rest. Some beauty rest. And there's actually science to show this because inflammation is one of the causes of sleep deprivation. You become inflamed. And this is one of the things that is associated with a lot of poor health outcomes. This right here is a light map at night of Western Europe. 2/3 of the world's population lives in what we would call a light pollution status area. 99% of people in the West live in what is classified as a light pollution status area. And then you compound this with digital technology like your cell phones and LCD screens from your televisions, and you're being bombarded with blue wave light. Blue wave light inhibits melatonin. Melatonin is the principal hormone that regulates your sleep-wake activity. And so this may explain why there are so many sleep disorders. In the US, there's been estimated to be about 50 to 70 million sleep disorders, and maybe estimates, I did a little bit of research, maybe estimates as big as 30 million in Southeast Asia. And among these things is insomnia, narcolepsy, sleep apnea, circadian phase disorder, seasonal affective disorder, and myself and a colleague published this in a paper called Shining Evolutionary Light on Human Sleep and Sleep Disorders. In 2012, Nettergaard and Goldman discovered what I think is probably one of the most important discoveries in the 21st century so far in human biology. And they discovered the glymphatic system. Okay, this is the mechanism in the brain that clears out byproducts of your alert nervous system. So, for example, beta amyloid is this basically a spent protein. When you are alert, right now, everyone in this room is generating beta amyloid. In fact, when you spend a full day, you generate about a shot, about that much beta amyloid in your brain. And one of the functions of sleep is to take your cerebral spinal fluid and clear out that beta amyloid, okay? And it's really critical. We just discovered this. And so Randy Nesse, one of the fathers of evolutionary medicine in the United States, published this paper, Does Selection for Short Sleep Duration Explain Human Vulnerability to Alzheimer's Disease? And he noticed that other primates actually don't have Alzheimer's. There's been no instances of other primates that we can find that show that they have Alzheimer's disease through cognitive testing. And so his hypothesis was that natural selection for shorter sleep time, which is what we discovered, in humans has compromised the efficacy of mechanisms that protect against Alzheimer's disease. So things like melatonin. Melatonin is really critical. It's an antioxidant, and it's something that expels beta amyloid. But if we're not spending enough time asleep, we're not producing enough melatonin. If it's midnight and we're looking at our cell phones and we have the lights on and melatonin's being inhibited, we're not producing it. And so we're going to have more beta amyloid in our brains, this toxin in our brains, as a rule throughout our lives. And that might be why we are vulnerable to Alzheimer's disease, because we evolved short sleep times. So we don't have as much time as other animals to clear this out. So there is some good news, actually. In fact, some recent studies, one from the UK, showed that compared to 1974, in detailed time diaries, the average sleep actually gained by 43 minutes. So this is interesting, because what this means is that on one end, with technology, we have a double-edged sword, where there's light, we're producing all this light that's throwing in trouble to our circadian system. But we're producing beds and pillows and comfortable sleep environments and safe houses with temperature control that is creating higher sleep quality and longer sleep. So perhaps we're gaining more mastery over our sleep environment, and that's a really good thing. Now we just need to couple it with our circadian physiology so that we can truly augment our sleep for the 21st century and beyond. So, yes, technology is disruptive, but we're also creating higher quality sleep environments. If we can couple this with our understanding, a better understanding of circadian physiology, I truly think we can enrich our sleep and, as a result, enrich our lives.